Hi and happy October. I actually can't believe it's October. I had to sort of sit with my coffee this morning and just let myself adjust to that fact. I don't know what happened to September at all. So I still feel like I'm arriving into autumn, and we're well into autumn now. And we have a solar eclipse in Libra tomorrow on the 2nd of October. So I wanted to talk a bit about that today. This solar eclipse is the last eclipse in the cycle we've had over the last kind of couple of years, in the Libra Aries axis. So, and it's interesting. I mean, obviously, all beginnings contain an ending, and all endings contain a new beginning. But I'm really feeling that with this eclipse, because it's the end of this eclipse cycle. And it's also a solar eclipse. It's a new moon. So we tend to think of solar eclipses and new moons more on that like beginning side of things, more about this new birth. But it is at the south node. So which is sort of the past and past karma. Um so with all of that in mind, it actually feels like a relatively nice energy for this eclipse to me. Eclipses are always quite powerful. The energy is always a bit unstable because they are bringing big changes. But looking at the chart for this eclipse, and sort of feeling into it, um, the intensity doesn't feel as strong as we had for the lunar eclipse in Pisces recently. And it sort of feels like, the time in between eclipses is always kind of quite intense and unstable as well. So it feels like things have been choppy, but actually this eclipse now tomorrow, it sort of feels more like just a clearing of the way. It's like, yeah, there's probably some stuff to be released, but it's more about clearing the path now. The path is there, depending, I guess, on the work you've been doing around these eclipses and what they've been bringing up for you, or around kind of this year and what it's been throwing up for you. There is potential now for sort of the debris just to be shifted, and there should really be sort of a new way or a new path already formed, and it's just about sort of dusting it off a little bit, and I won't even say moving on to it because I sort of feel like that has probably begun at this stage. And it's a great time to just pause and reflect as well, because it's the last eclipse in this axis. So if you know what houses Libra and Aries um, rule in your chart, that's the area of your life that these eclipses will have been bringing transformation and change to. And so just taking a moment to look back to yourself over the last sort of year and a half or so around those areas of your life, and what have been the themes, what has changed. Particularly this eclipse is really linked to the last eclipse we had in Libra in March of this year. And it definitely feels like some of the themes that would have been sparked off and thrown up in March might be resurfacing now. And again, depending on the work you've done, maybe that could actually be tumultuous. It also depends what it's touching in your chart. If it's really touching personal planets or angles for you, you are going to feel this energy quite strongly. But generally speaking, it does feel like, yes, these themes might be coming up, but it's just sort of that dusting of the cobwebs and clearing off the last debris. Um, the other thing I'll say, so Libra is well known to be the sign of relationships, partnerships, balance, harmony. It's ruled by Venus. And relational healing and healing of even kind of exchanges of like give and take does feel quite relevant for this eclipse, for that reason of Libra, but also because at the time, so tomorrow with the eclipse, we also have a grand water trine with Venus in Scorpio, Mars in Cancer, and Saturn in Pisces. So we have Venus and Saturn, feminine, masculine, receiving, um, pleasure, love, abundance would be Venus, beauty, art, harmony, relationships, and then Mars. the masculine drive, the survival drive, aggression, assertion, the warrior, making things happen, going for what you want, action, activity, movement. They're in this grand trine with Saturn. So Saturn being structures, forms, and trine is a lovely energy flow. So it's quite a harmonious energy flow between Mars, Saturn, and Venus. So I don't think any of those planets are particularly happy in the sign they're in. Um, but it does feel like this happening at the same time as sort of this change energy of the eclipse in Libra. It feels quite supportive in that there's this lovely flow between Saturn, Venus, and Mars. But there is also some sort of shifting, some sort of kind of transformation with it as well with the eclipse. And interesting with Saturn there, it really feels like maybe a new flow in the structures we have around relationships. So this could even be like societal stuff for sure. Um, but thinking more personally, just noticing for yourself, like what's coming up for you around relationships at the moment, around equality in relationships, balance of give and take. Also about the structures that you have, the internal structures and maps you have of relationships, of how you can receive in relationships, what you need to do to receive in relationships. Um, Also, even just the internal structures that you have or that you hold around making things happen versus allowing things to happen. Even thinking of it sort of in these energies of receptivity and action, even in relationship with like life, and what are your structures around that? Like, how much do you need to effort and make happen? How much do you allow yourself to receive? Be open to what might happen. So all of that feels quite relevant at the moment for the eclipse. And again, just thinking of the houses that it's in for you will give you more information about that. The one last thing I'll say for this solar eclipse in Libra is that Mars is also square Chiron in Aries. So it's a bit wide, but it is there. So that just feels like it brings an extra element of kind of healing the masculine, Chiron being the wounded healer. Um, and that could be men and men in our lives, but it can also just be our inner masculine, I think it's always a bit tricky to conceptualize masculine and feminine, to be honest, because there's so much cultural overtones come in, but however you kind of resonate with that. Um, and that's felt like a big theme for this whole year is the masculine has been healing. So where it's been dark and shadowy, that's really coming to light. And even things personally of our inner masculine healing around how much we like, do we show up and commit to things and make things happen, or do we play the victim a bit? Um, do we overcommit and feel like we need to work ourselves to the bone, or can we kind of show up in a trusting way? And then also things around like father wounds, wounds around relationships with men, or I'm not a man, so I don't know what it's been like this year as a man, but the masculine really is being called to heal, I think, and come into a new flow um of exchange and of relationship with the feminine, and maybe kind of that also happening in structures, whether that's internal structures that we have, or it could also be social societal structures. So I'm here for that. But yeah, so wishing you a really beautiful solar eclipse tomorrow. It does feel like the energies of October are probably going to intensify a bit, just looking ahead in the astrology. I'll be back on with more at a later date.